Thanks to the supporters of channel member Michael Beagles and presumably Miguel Beagles as well. Thanks to both of you. Here we go again then, folks. Playoff semi-finals. It's Puebla. We've scored some goals past them this season. This could be a lot of fun. Hello and welcome to part 11 of El Director Deportivo. I'm Kevin. Coming up on today's episode, we have both legs of the playoff semi-final against Puebla, away and then home. And yeah, we've scored goals against this lot. If we go all the way back to the start of the season, where are we? We put 8 past them in our first game, our first competitive game. Then we played them again in the Apertura quarterfinals, an 8-4 win on aggregate. We then played them again, obviously in the Clausura regular season, beating them 4-0 in the league. And now we've got them in the Clausura semi-finals. And we've got to be thinking, can we get to double figures? Of course, we're having to do this without a striker. So it's not quite as straightforward as that. But fingers crossed, we've got a spot in the final ahead of us. And a final that is opening itself up, this draw, because there's no Monterrey left in this. It's going to be a final against either Atlas or Tigres, assuming we get there. That's the teams that finished in 5th and 6th place. I'm feeling confident that we might have a back-to-back win. And then apparently there's a champion of champions game, which I guess is going to just break the save if we have to play ourselves. We'll play our under-20s. It'll be fine. We're going with Godinho in goal, a back four of Calderon, Briseño, Montes and Brizuela, Molina at the base of the midfield, Gonzalez and Beltran ahead of him, and then Lainez, Vega and Antuna as our front three. Let's get into the game. Let's score a whole bunch of goals and hopefully have a really nice time. Dressing room thing. Go and grab a win. And all that's done is confuse Antuna. No one else is bothered. Antuna's confused. What's confusing? Go and grab. I want you to win a football match. It's not hard. Just go and win the football match. Gonzalez plays it forward to Vega. Vega back to Beltran. Vega, of course, starting to settle into his role as our striker. I'm not sure he's the man for the future in that role. Certainly, if I had any input onto the transfers, I would be looking to spend any and all budget we get this summer on a striker. I think it's pretty much all we need, at least domestically. We'll get an idea next season how we fare against the MLS teams and the Canadian teams when we get into the Champions League. In real life, I'm led to believe it's Mexican teams against MLS teams is like Premier League teams playing against League One teams. We should be comfortably better than them. Whether or not that's the case in Football Manager, I guess we'll find out next season. Not that any Champions League qualification has been confirmed yet. My understanding is it's the finalists in both the Apertura and the Clausura get the Champions League spots. So we should have already qualified. We're on the verge of qualifying again as Briseño puts us 1-0 up from the penalty spot. That's his 14th goal of the season from our centre-back and captain. I know he takes the penalties, but even with taking the penalties, 14 goals from centre-back is absolutely ridiculous. And I think if I was a European team scouting in Central America, are we North America or Central America? I think it's North America, isn't it? I probably should have learned that sooner than this point of the series. But I would certainly be looking at Briseño thinking he's got something about him, this boy. He plays internationally for Mexico. He made his debut for Mexico earlier in the season. He's our captain. He's just very good at football. Yes, he's 26 years old, but I guess he did get the opportunity in Portugal and it didn't really work out for him. But that is a ridiculous goal-scoring season. That's like the career history of Paul Warhurst back in the 90s when Sheffield Wednesday just decided to start playing him up front and all of a sudden Blackburn signed him as a striker when he was just an average centre-back. Have they just gone down to 10 men? We're 2-0 up. Puebla down to 10 men. I think we're in the final. I'm on the verge of just fast tracking the process and just showing you the final now because it's guaranteed. Surely, if we get to 5-0 up before half time, we'll just skip to the final because we'll assume we're going to get there. It might become competitive now they're down to 10 men. They might shut up shop. Who knows? Vega's in. It's a decent save. and it's pushed wide for a corner. And here's our opportunity, not just to go 3-0 up in the tie, but for Bresenio to grab another one. Corner comes in, but their goalkeeper is equal to it this time, collects the cross, and the move just kind of breaks down from there. 35 minutes on the clock, still only 2-0 up. I would expect us to be better than this. I think it is indicative of the fact we don't really have a striker. When we had a striker in the team, we dominated them to this extent and were scoring 6 goals, 4 goals, 8 goals. Without a striker, even though you can see from the stats we are still dominating, we've actually only had 4 shots on target because we don't really have a finisher in the side. Beltran charging forward now, ends up falling. In fact, has he been given a penalty? That seems like a very soft penalty, but I think it is a penalty. It's Bresenio again with another. Did they just get another player sent off as well? Bresenio from the penalty. It's saved this time. And they haven't had another player sent off. I saw a flash of red, but I guess it was just the commentary for us, maybe. Calder on them with a corner, in swinger. Bresenio's there again. He really wants his second goal, but he heads high and wide. And it looks like it is going to be 2-0 as we head towards half-time. Shows what an impact missing a penalty has on a rating. He's down to a 6.5 despite scoring earlier in the game. You get 2 penalised for missing penalties. It's silly. But having a defender now who's missed a penalty might just open things up a little bit at the back for us. So we might be the best thing to do is to take him off to avoid any further mischief. Although, Bresenio's hit the crossbar now. What I was going to say is we did see in the Streamer Showdown this weekend just gone, I had Sergio Ramos, my captain, who missed a penalty, then went on to score a penalty and score a phenomenal header from a corner as well. So it is possible to come back from a penalty miss, at least if you're Sergio Ramos. I would suggest Bresenio, probably not quite Sergio Ramos level, but who am I to judge? I'm only their manager. Of course, if you want to see more Streamer Showdown stuff, including all the VODs from the weekend when I won the tournament for the 4th time, they're all over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/lollujo. Link is in the description down below. And of course, you can check me out live over there as well. Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Sundays, 8 p.m. UK time when I stream live. If you can't catch it live, it's all there as VODs. Video on demand. If you're an old man like me and you didn't know what a VOD was. Basically, like YouTube, but different. It's a whole new world of stuff. If you've never checked it out, today's the day. Discounts off of subscriptions over there at the moment and all sorts. What a place. What a time to be alive. Right, Cisneros is going to come on. We're going to push Vega out onto the right-hand side. Brizuela's going to come off for Maya as well. We're going to do a treble, a Kevy treble. We're going to bring Angulo on for Linez as the final change. And we're still only 2-0 up. I was expecting a more dominant scoreline. I mean, we've had the dominant performance. You can see that from the stats. But scoreline-wise, this is not quite what I was hoping for out of today's game. I would suggest, as I speculated they might, Puebla have just shut up shop when they went down to 10 men. And I've just decided we're not going to concede anymore. We'll regroup. We've got a second leg. And there's Bresenio to make it 3, but it's offside, I think, now. Bresenio's not having any luck today. He could and should have had a hat-trick. As it is, he's going to come away with just the 1 goal. That's marginal as well. He's only just offside. But offside he is. The goal is disallowed. It's still 2-0. Looking at the other game, Atlas are ahead against Tigres. So at the moment, it's more likely to be Atlas, although they're only 1-0 up in their home leg. So there's every opportunity for Tigres to come back in that game just yet. And they're the team I fear more than Atlas, I think. We're looking at what the pre-season predictions were. Tigres were one of the big 4 who are supposed to be up there challenging with us. So yeah, they're the ones we'd like to avoid if possible. Let's do the second leg. No changes then for the second leg. Why would I do any changes when we were so good in that first leg? And being back at our place, hopefully some of this dominance will convert into goals. We could do with getting some goals out of Vega. I did toy with the idea of taking the youngster who's just come through the youth setup, young Lara, the 17-year-old. I considered throwing him into the mix, but for playoff semi-finals might not be the right place for him. He's got time on his side. He'll get plenty of game time next season, especially if we don't bring a striker in. He'll get plenty of game time in the regular league season next year to prove that he's worthy of his spot in the team. And let's face it, it's not like I can do typical Kev things and just go and sign an Argentinian wonder kid over the top of him unless there's somebody better who is Mexican and available and Mike decides to buy, Lara is going to be one of the top strikers at the club next year, just by default of there not being anybody any better. Antuna now on the right-hand side, plays it back to Brazela. Beltran now looking for options ahead of him, finds Antuna again, who's got space to run into. Antuna's got Brazela on the overlap, but plays it back to Molina. Brazela, I think, was offside, but it's not been given. It cut back to Vega, and Vega has his 10 for the season. It's 1-0, 3-0 on aggregate, half an hour gone. Look how happy the fans are. They're having a lovely time. They've learned English chants, because they've got an English manager who's going to lead them to back-to-back titles for the first time. I haven't checked, but looking at how rarely it seems to have happened, I'm going to assume it'd be the first time Chivas have done it since the split into an Apertura and Clausura. We'll double-check that after the game, but I don't think it's ever been done here at Chivas before. So, on that basis, greatest manager in the history of the football club, anybody? Just throwing that out there. If Mexico want to give me the national team job, I've got a few Mexican players that I've got in mind that are quite good that we can throw into the mix. The longer the save goes on, I know we're only a season in so far, but knowing that all of my team are Mexicans, I do quite like the idea of managing Mexico as well and taking the same squad of players to the Club World Cup and the International World Cup in consecutive summers. I think that would be amazing. I know there'll always be a couple of Mexican players who are so good that they outgrow Mexico, they outgrow Chivas, and Mike decides to sell them on to someone in Europe or can't bring them in, or for whatever reason we never show an interest in them. But I think there could be some real big, if we have a team big enough, if we have a team good enough to compete properly in the Club World Cup, then surely you'd expect, and knowing that would be a squad entirely of Mexican players, surely you would expect a significant number of that squad to also be internationals, because if they were multinational, they'd all be internationals, and Mexico aren't exactly top tier as an international side. So if we've got a team that can compete with the likes of Barcelona and Bayern Munich and Liverpool, then the majority of that team are going to be good enough to play for Mexico, you would think. That's my thought process. I don't know if we're going to be caught out by the same thing we've been caught out with in Greece, in the Greek Odyssey, where the nation reputation isn't quite good enough to give that level of young players to come through. But I would suggest the new gen rating for Mexico is probably going to be higher than it is for Greece, because you always get loads of good Mexicans. The game's always littered with them. So we just need to make sure a majority of them either come through our youth system or end up with us. I need Mike on board with this. It's 2-0 now, 4-0 on aggregate. Vega scoring again, so he can score at home, apparently, which I guess is worse. Is not as bad as not being able to score at all, but we do need him to start stepping up every time we play. Zendejas is coming on the left-hand side, and for my final change, we're going to bring on Vazquez at the base of the midfield there. He's been injured for a long time. I think this might be his first game back from injury. This is where I'm proven wrong. No, there you go. He's been injured for ages. This is his first appearance since his long injury layoff. So good to see him back and involved for the playoff final, which is going to be in tomorrow's episode, presumably against Atlas. I haven't actually checked in on the scores, so we'll just have a look at them the next time we cut back to the main screen. What do you call that screen? The in-betweeny bit. It's Tigres 1, Atlas 1 on the night, so 2-1 to Atlas on aggregate so far. Still time to play, presumably, but looking good for Atlas at the moment to be the team that we face in the Clausura final, which will... Oh, I've just pressed the wrong button. Which will be coming up tomorrow. Have we got the confirmation of that? Just pat Vega on the head for another good performance. Cisneros has been training well. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And there is your confirmation that it's Atlas versus Chivas, and that takes place. Have we got another long break? In fact, no. Back in the Apertura, we had like a 3-week gap. It's a 3-day gap. There'll be some tired players, but with the chance for more silverware, which is always welcome. If you've enjoyed that, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. And thank you very much for watching.